The first page appeared on the top of the kitchen counter, propped against the toaster like a note a considerate roommate might leave. Lines of looping black ink filled both sides. Daniel Brennan stared at it for several minutes before he was able to move. "I followed her for 6 blocks," the confession read, and knew by the way she held her umbrella that she wouldn't fight hard. The rest was an unblinking clinical description of a killing that made Daniel's stomach lurch. It ended with the words, "I am sorry, but I can't stop." It was his own handwriting, rounded capitals, a tendency to slant to the right near the end of sentences, the slight wobble on every letter S. He was 34 years old, and in 3 decades he'd written thousands of grocery lists, marginal notes, and abandoned journal entries in that same hand. He knew it like his own face. Yet he could not remember writing one word of the page. The previous night had been like dozens before it. A late dinner of reheated pasta, half a bottle of cheap wine, one forgettable episode of television, and sleep. No dreams he could recall. No gaps. Certainly no excursions outside the one-bedroom apartment whose thin windows looked toward a neon pharmacy sign. He called in sick to the digital marketing firm where he edited ad copy for exercise bikes, then paced his living room, shaking. Eventually, he forced himself to open his laptop and search local news. Crime in Philadelphia was hardly rare, but nothing in the headlines resembled the murder described on the page. There was no unidentified woman found in an alleyway, no mention of a silver umbrella, no police plea for witnesses. He told himself it was a nightmare scribbled down in a state of half-sleep. He tore the sheet into squares, flushed them 2 at a time, and spent the rest of the day trying not to think. The next morning, a second confession lay on the counter. 2 pages this time, the curves even neater than before, as though his unconscious self were settling into a pleasant routine. The man by the ATM would have walked away with his cash if he hadn't looked over his shoulder. The moment our eyes met, there was no point in anything else. This scene, too, had the awful specificity of lived memory. Exact addresses, the victim's cologne, the metallic smell of severed arteries. Daniel rushed to his laptop. Still, nothing in the news. That afternoon, he rode the bus to a walk-in clinic and told the first doctor who would listen that he'd been losing time. He steered carefully around the topic of murder. The doctor's mouth tightened. Dissociative episodes were possible, he said. Sleepwalking was possible. Stress could do terrifying things. "Are you using any substances?" the doctor asked, eyes flicking down Daniel's nervous hands. Daniel shook his head. The doctor prescribed a mild sleep aid, recommended journaling, and told him to come back if the episodes worsened. On Wednesday morning, despite the pill that left his limbs leaden, there were 4 pages waiting. The writing was more hurried now, dense with rage. "I snapped his arm against the curb like a rotten branch. I felt it go." Daniel vomited in the sink, rinsed his mouth, and packed the pages into a manila envelope. He walked the 4 blocks to the 9th District Police Station in a haze, repeating a single thought. Let them take it. Let them figure it out. He lasted 3 minutes in the lobby. Officers strode past, radios crackling, the faint stink of disinfectant rising from the linoleum. Daniel pictured himself trying to explain. "I think I might be killing people, but I'm not sure. Here are some notes my sleepwalking self wrote." He envisioned the way they'd lock eyes over his shoulder and guide him gently toward a psychiatric hold. He turned and walked out without speaking to anyone. That night, he resolved to stay awake. The exhaustion was almost comic. His eyelids seemed to weigh pounds, but fear kept him upright until 3 in the morning, when he jolted awake in the armchair with a crick in his neck. He sprinted to the kitchen. The counter was empty. He released a shaky laugh, convinced he'd broken the spell by refusing to sleep. He rummaged for cereal, ate standing up, and padded back to the bathroom to splash water on his face. On the bathroom floor lay a folded sheet of notebook paper. Daniel's breath stuttered. He knelt and opened it. The trick is to write quiet as sunrise, while he's too tired to fight for the body. The hand isn't mine alone. Yet, but it will be. Daniel stared at the final sentence, his scalp prickling. The entry was dated tomorrow, 10/27, 4:19 a.m. His phone said 3:58, which meant the author and the body that held the pen was writing in the future, or his sense of time had cracked like ice. He snapped pictures of the page, then spent the rest of the pre-dawn hours online, learning everything he could about parasomnias, fugue states, dissociative identity disorder. Forums bristled with anecdotes, people waking to find entire pies baked, hundreds of dollars gambled, relationships begun and ended. Violence, some said, was possible. Not common, but possible. Daniel bought 2 motion-activated cameras and set them up that evening. One aimed at his bed, the other at the hallway leading to the front door. He positioned his laptop to record the kitchen counter. Then he swallowed another sleep aid, lay on the quilt, and prayed to dream of nothing. He woke late, head thick with cotton. Sunlight striped the wall. Panic struck as he fumbled for his phone. 11:42 a.m. He lunged for the cameras. The bedroom camera showed him tossing, turning, murmuring. At 2:17 he sat bolt upright, eyes open but unfocused. He swung his legs over the side and stood. The screen went black. He rebooted 3 times, but the file ended there, corrupted or deleted. The hallway camera survived. It captured him shuffling toward the kitchen, bare feet dragging, but when he passed the camera's frame, a second figure slid into view behind him. The intruder wore a hood that concealed their face. One gloved hand reached out and stroked Daniel's shoulder almost tenderly before following him down the hall and out of frame. The timestamp read 2:18 a.m. Daniel stared at the screen so long his eyes dried. His mind spat up a dozen explanations, rejected all of them, circled back to the first. Someone else was doing this, someone who could move through his locked apartment and guide his sleepwalking body like a puppet. His pulse hammered as he checked the kitchen. 2 new confession pages waited on the counter, anchored by the salt shaker. The first described the suffocation of an elderly man outside a bingo hall. The second was worse. It detailed the removal of the man's ring finger as a souvenir. At the bottom, a single line of print shivered. What you can't remember, you can't regret. Daniel sank to the floor, pressing his palms to his ears. The room felt too small, the air too sharp. He needed proof. Proof for the police, for himself. Something that could not be erased. An idea, bright as a blade, slid between his pounding thoughts. He left the apartment only once that day to buy a steel cable and padlock. At home, he wound the cable around his ankle and the metal frame of the bed, pressing the lock shut with a decisive click. The key, he wedged into a gob of petroleum jelly and swallowed, gagging. Let the bastard squirm it out of him if he wanted the key. He downed the sleep aid, wedged a chair under the doorknob for good measure, and lay back. He pictured the hooded stranger creeping through the dark, finding him tethered like an animal, and cursed them with every name he knew until the drug pulled him under. Morning. Gray rain tapped the windows. Daniel's first thought was triumph. He could still feel the cable snug around his ankle. He sat up, wincing at the stiffness, and saw the new pages on his lap. 5 sheets. Densely written. His heart stumbled. He touched the cable. The lock was intact, the metal cool. Slowly he read. You thought chains would matter. You have no idea how deeply you want this, how gladly your muscles yield. All night you wrote while the rain hummed, and never once did you beg me to stop. Then a list of places, beginning with 733 Marymount Avenue, ending with coordinates he did not recognize. Beneath each location, a name, a death, a thrill. The prose was ecstatic, the voice reveling in pain the way some people linger over dessert. Daniel rocked forward and vomited onto the carpet. Tremors racked his arms. He tore loose the cable, scrambled to the bathroom, and forced 2 fingers down his throat, gagging until the key slid free into the bowl. He rinsed it, hands shaking, unlocked the cable, and stumbled for the front door. It was barred by the chair he'd wedged. He flung it aside, yanked the door open. The hooded figure stood inches away. A strangled shout tore from his throat. He stumbled back, slipping on the wet tile. The figure stepped inside and lowered the hood. His own face looked down at him. The man was older by perhaps 10 years, the cheeks gaunt, the eyes bruised by fatigue, but unmistakably his own. A twin who had aged in a harsher climate. The lips twitched into a half-smile. "I hoped you'd get here sooner," the stranger said. His voice was Daniel's voice twisted through a cracked speaker. "Who?" Daniel croaked, throat raw. "Call me Davis. That's what Mother called me when you cried too much." The smile widened. "Everyone's got a shadow, Danny. I'm yours." Impossible. Daniel pressed a hand to the wall, pulling himself upright. "You're not real." "Neither are those ads you write," Davis said. "But they make people sweat on treadmills every day." Daniel's knees threatened to buckle. "Why the pages?" "Training wheels," Davis said, strolling past him. "Eventually you'll remember the nights. Writing it down helps merge us, helps you accept what you are capable of." Daniel shook his head hard, as if to rattle the words out. "The cameras, the cable, the key. Clever." Davis plucked one of yesterday's confession pages from the counter, whistled appreciatively. "But confinement's a kindness you don't deserve. Besides, I can do more with a pen than you'll ever manage with a chain." He laid a small recorder beside the page and pressed play. Daniel recognized his own voice reciting a phrase in a language he didn't know. The sound crawled over his skin, cold and slick, and something inside him bent toward it like grass toward sunlight. "Stop," Daniel rasped. The word felt small. Davis paused the recorder. "Hypnosis, if that helps you sleep at night. But really, it's just permission. Most men spend their lives pretending they aren't animals. I'm giving you honesty." Daniel's gaze flicked to the hallway. The front door was ajar, rain drumming in the stairwell. If he could reach it. "I left it open for you," Davis said gently. "Run if you want. You'll find me waiting in every reflection." Daniel's breath stuttered. He backed away until his heel hit the coffee table, grabbed the heaviest thing, an art book, swung it. Davis caught the book neatly, tossed it aside. "You can kill me," Davis said, voice soft. "But you'll be alone with the hunger, and you won't know which face in the mirror it wears." He touched Daniel's chest with 2 fingers. "Bring the pages tonight, and the coordinates. There's a farmhouse that's been empty too long." He walked out, shutting the door behind him. Footsteps faded down the stairwell. Daniel stood frozen for several minutes before the trembling began. It spread until his teeth clicked. Finally he moved, tearing open every drawer for tape, scissors, matches, anything. He snatched the recorder, smashed it against the floor until the plastic shattered. Then he grabbed the confession pages, all of them, stuffed them into the sink, and struck a match. Flame licked the paper. The smoke curled greasy and black. When only fragile ash remained, he turned on the tap and ground the remains to pulp beneath his thumbs. "I am not you," he whispered, voice breaking. He dug through his closet until he found the battered hiking pack he hadn't used since college. In it, he stuffed clothes, the charger for his phone, the cash in his sock drawer, water. He slung it on and strode out. At the corner, he turned right, away from the subway, from his job, from every place Davis would expect. He walked until his legs quivered, then walked further. Night found him 23 miles north in a motel that smelled of ammonia. He locked the door, blocked it with the dresser, and curled on the bed fully dressed. Sleep came in tattered bursts. At 2:13 a.m., his eyes snapped open to the rustle of paper. The motel's writing pad lay on the nightstand. A single sentence, wet with fresh ink, gleamed. "Running is a form of faith. We practice believing we have somewhere better to be." Daniel flung the pad into the bathroom sink and opened the door, prepared to sprint into the dark, but the corridor was empty. He paced, heart pounding, until dawn paled the wallpaper. At 7, he stood at a payphone outside a diner, dialing the 9th District Precinct. When an operator answered, He spoke quickly, fighting the tremor in his jaw. "I need Detective Serena Lopez," he said. "Tell her it's about the Marymount killing and that I have evidence." A pause. "One moment." Static hissed. Detective Lopez's voice emerged, wary, sleep-rough. "This is Lopez." Daniel forced the words out. "I think I'm connected to the murders you're investigating. I have journals, recordings, and I need protection." A longer pause. "Name?" "Daniel Brennan." He waited for the click of disbelief, the lecture about prank calls. Instead, pages rustled on her end. "Your name's on a note we found at the last scene." Her tone chilled. "Where are you?" "A motel off Route 30, he said. "Room 12. Please don't come alone, and please, for God's sake, handcuff me the second you arrive." He hung up before she could respond, knuckles white on the metal receiver. Rain misted the parking lot. He exhaled once, twice. Behind him, a reflection shimmered in the diner window. His own shape, shoulders hunched, but the eyes dark, patient. The mouth curled. Daniel refused to turn. He fixed his gaze on the asphalt and repeated the detective's name like a prayer. "Lopez. Lopez. Lopez." In the glass, the reflection lifted a hand, almost in blessing, then faded as though swallowed by the dull morning light.